we're going to get right into our next talk. And for this talk, I'd like to bring on Martin Köppelmann, who is the founder of Gnosis. And he's going to talk about circles. We're going to talk appropriately titled Better Money. Please give him a big round of applause.
No. Yeah, I'm Martin, and founder of Gnosis, and we did all kind of things in the blockchain space. Started with prediction markets, built stuff like the Safe, CowSwap, now Gnosis chain, wallets. But actually, the reason I initially went into the blockchain space because I was excited about a thing I called circles. And over 10 years ago, I described this idea of circles as a form of fair money. Back then, I was a Bitcoin, somewhat Bitcoin maxi, was excited about Bitcoin, but then felt, okay, maybe Bitcoin is not the answer to all questions, or not the ultimate form of money, and maybe there is a better form of money, or something that is actually used as a medium of exchange and unit of account, where Bitcoin is roughly just used as a store of value, if it's money at all. So this talk will be about circles, which I'll argue. So it's a quite radical idea here, which I argue is a better form of money. And as a first step, let's think about what money actually is. And there is this quote, from Bernard Lietaer saying, it's important to understand that money is something social. It's an agreement within a group of people to use something within that group as a form of medium of exchange, unit of account. But the important part here is that money is essentially a choice. So we have absolutely the option to change it. So our money system, let's say the dollar, the euro, whatever it is not a God-given thing. It's choices, and it can be changed. And in crypto, we have the great freedom to be in a way in this have this playing field, I guess, where we can have those radical ideas and just say, okay, we are in this virtual, but of course also touching the reality in this world, and we have the opportunity to design things just new from scratch. So let's do this together. Let's design money from scratch. So let's imagine it's 100 people of us. We stranded on an island. We figured, okay, it would be useful to have money, but we don't have money because, we're just on this island, cut off from the world. So what could we do? So idea one, just one time, give everyone 1,000 units, and then call it a day. And kind of once those units are out there, just kind of let them, people can spend them, people can, and essentially use that as a form of money. But then, let's say the next day, 10 more people come. They also get their 1,000 units, but and they spend them, and then the day after, they already leave the island again. Then the question is, was it really a good choice to also give them those 1,000 units? So maybe instead of just saying kind of at one point you get whatever, the full amount equally per person, instead maybe we should do a distribution over time, so that instead of for those that just showed up very quickly, they would of course then get way less. So second idea, let's not do one fixed issuance. Let's do issuance over time. Let's say everyone gets 1 unit of this new form of money per hour, and they just have the right to issue 1 unit per hour. So let's look. Oh wait. Okay, there is. You actually see the slides. I'm glad. So let's look at the issuance. Issuance would be linear. So the total supply of token or of money increases. But let's say here at year 50, a big storm happens, and therefore 80% of the people on this island die, and then the remaining. So then that would of course mean the remaining 20% would have 5 times more money per person, and continuously grows. So that means the issuance of new money would be relative to the continuously growing amount of existing money would essentially go towards zero. And now, fictionally, at some point in the future, a new group joins this our island, and we who are on the island would offer them the same scheme. Yeah, you also can join, and you get 1 unit per person per hour. But the total amount of circles that, or of money that would be around per person would already be many millions. So for those that come new, that would not be a really attractive deal to join. So kind of the conclusion here is that we just kind of continuously issue money, we get a lot. So maybe there should be a concept that old money needs to disappear. So idea 3 is, okay, we modify that. So issuance is still continuous, one per hour. But in addition, there is something called demurrage. So demurrage just means money kind of rots. So that means if you just hold 1,000 units in an account, then after a year, it will lose, or kind of 7% will disappear. So it will go down to 930. And then kind of next year, again, another 7%. And it's not a step function, it's a continuous function. So I don't want to go in all the details, but essentially the graphs should just show you that in that world, the new issuance of money will always, even if extreme shocks in a way to that economy happen, it will always converge roughly against this 7% again. So always the ratio between newly issued money and existing money will always stabilize towards 7%. And here's just the last graph again, showing the supply of a single person. So in the beginning, it's growing almost linear, but then the 7% hits in until it kind of finds this equilibrium, and kind of that could go on. Just here, kind of theoretically, if they, after 80 years, let's say, die and stop issuing, then it would decay. But from a system perspective, circles has the property to always converge against the total supply of circles in the system, always converges to this magic number of 120,804 times number of people in the system. Here is another way, or the last graph I'll bother you with to look at that is to say, if you exactly hold that magic number in your account, those 120,000, well, actually 804 circles, then your new issuance, so from your personal perspective, the new issuance, the 1 per hour you can issue, exactly equals out that demurrage, so that 7% that all balances are cut off. So in that sense, your marginal, or your tax rate, if you see this 7% as a tax on your money, then your tax rate is exactly 0, because those two forces equal out. Every account who holds less than that has a negative tax rate. So essentially they gain more from this system than they, quote unquote, pay in taxes, while if your balance goes towards infinity, your kind of, in a way, your marginal tax rate also approaches then those 7%, because in relationship to those 7% you're paying on the money, your new issuance is almost irrelevant. So the next step is, in circles, again, we are in this fictional task to say we design a new form of money, and we say issuance could be per person. Now, a big question is, who is the person, and who can decide who is the person is? So who decides who can issue money? And circles here has the radical answer that it says anyone can do that. And that also means potentially you can have a fake account. So it's in principle, there's no gatekeeper, no gatekeeping whatsoever in the system. So anyone can create a circles account and start issuing money. The super important part is that everyone issues uniquely different circles. So if I create an account, then I will start to issue, whatever you want to call them, Martin circles, and they are different from another person that also issues circles. Now, to make it work, people need to selectively choose, essentially, whom circle they trust. And in this picture, the idea is that A trusts person B, and that means they are so essentially they are kind of doing some kind of agreement. Okay, you are issuing money, I'm saying I accept your money, you say I accept my money. And that essentially will form, or you can form a web of trust with that and do payments via this web of trust. So in this example, person A or person B is trusting person A, say, yeah, I trust you, I accept your circles. Person C and B are also trusting each other, and now A wants to pay C. C does not know A, and therefore would not accept their circles. They might be fake, but they know B. So how a transaction works is that A sends let's say 100 circles to person B, and B is fine with that because they trust the A circles. And then kind of 100 B circles, and that's very important, are forwarded to C. So C is also fine with that because C is trusting here the B circles. And ultimately, C does not need to care whether A is a real person or not because they just receive circles from a person they know. So it nicely, it's extremely resilient form of money because C is essentially only affected by, or from their perspective, the money supply is only relevant of the people directly around them. So together, that brings us to the three rules that are enough to define circles. A fixed issuance rate of one circle per hour. Second, the 7% demurrage, so kind of all balances continuously are decreased at a rate at 7% per year. And third, then this trust system where everyone has their own currency and you can essentially create fungibility across those currencies by trusting and doing transitive trusts. Now, circles is a system, I said already in the beginning, over 10 years. 10 years ago, it was essentially just an idea, a blog post, and I started talking about it. But in 2020, so now a bit over 4 years ago, we actually launched it. And here's how the network was looking after a couple of hours. So we started here with those just 4 people kind of trusting each other. After a couple of hours, it was already much larger network. After the next day, the trust network of circles already looked like that here. And after a couple of weeks, it already looked like that, with over 100,000 accounts, building this very rich web of trust. And therefore also quite strong identity, so it was, or it is used in this context of creating this money, but it can certainly, this Circles Web of Trust can also certainly be used for all kind of other applications. Everything that needs identity or reputation or some form of, connectiveness between people, or kind of a measure for connectiveness between people, certainly the Circles Trust Graph can be used. So if you want to have just some social media app that wants to kind of address the problem of not giving too much weight to spam content, of course you could also use the Circles graph to deal with that. So now going back to 2020, we had that very initial, kind of quite viral moment where the graph quite quickly grew, but then a somewhat slower period entered where, well, we actually try to make it work and try to use this currency in the real world. And this is an example from a shop in Berlin. So I live in Berlin. So yeah, we had a local community in Berlin that tried to use circles. So here, kind of a farmer's market thing where they sold vegetables and stuff here for 450 circles. And here's how a real transaction looked like in that circles world. So on the very right, you see this vendor, Bauer Direct, and they are trusting essentially those three accounts. And on the left side, that's me. And so they don't trust me directly, don't know me directly, but the Pathfinder luckily found a path to essentially convert my Martin circles into circles that vendor is comfortable with because they trust them. And yeah, I mean, that's how the graph looks like. So as I said before, circles' primary goal is to create a new form of what I would argue fair money. That essentially, one way to think about it of circles is to say, if a bunch of people, if all we in this room would together coordinate to use something as money, then this coordination alone would already create value. So whatever we choose, whatever asset or whatever thing we choose to use as money, just by us choosing it, that choice gives that asset already additional value. And now the question is, who should get that value? And the answer in circles is that value should be equally distributed across those who are together making that choice. While, let's say, a little bit in the Bitcoin world, it's more like, okay, probably 1 or 2% of the world population currently use Bitcoin. And of course, they would like to say everyone in the world should use Bitcoin. And whether that's better or not for the world is, I think, an open question. It's certainly better for those 1 or 2%. No question about that. Whether it's better for the other 98% that currently don't hold Bitcoin today, let's at least leave that as an open question. So I would say in circles, it tries to say everyone who joins should equally benefit from it. As a nice side outcome of that project, we also get this digital identity system. Already said that before. Yeah, small caveat. Circles is only a relational ID, so if you just look at the graph, you cannot absolutely say that person is real. You can only say, kind of assuming you need to have some starting point, so you need to have some people, or you need to have essentially your own starting point, saying, kind of, I assume those people are real, and relative to that, that other person also seems real. So yeah, it's relational, but not absolute. We are introducing Circles 2.0 and are adding to this pure P2P network, we are adding what we call groups, or from a DID perspective, we would call them attestations. And they allow you to make better choices in this resiliency efficiency trade-off space. So Circles is extremely resilient because essentially a small group can say, okay, we just trust each other, and then we are completely separated from the rest of the network, or only through this trust. But whatever happens here, it doesn't affect us here. While if you create larger groups, and if you say we are all kind of have this one large currency, then of course any part of this network can take that whole currency down. Groups, the problem with the resilience is that it can create friction. So groups allow you to essentially bundle a bunch of circles together and create fungible version of that. And then you can also stack groups, and essentially if you go up the ladder, then here you have much higher efficiency, lower resilience, but if such a higher level group breaks, you can always fall back on a lower level group, ultimately all the way back to the just personal peer-to-peer layer. I'll skip that. So it just shows that kind of you have to convert your personal circles to all kind of groups can happen, and that's certainly where builders come in. So we expect that groups happen for Zupa's users, for passport identity. So all kind of credentials that people have can be used to form groups, and therefore fungible versions of those individual circles. So very last thing before I wrap up. We had this launch 2020, had the Berlin experiment where I showed you a picture from, had an experiment in Bali. Just had now our developer release for Circles 2.0 a couple of weeks ago. So developers can already essentially do all kind of things. But for the proper launch, where we have a proper wallet that, by the way, will use a lot of the things that were presented here in the talk from in the wallet talk. So passkey signing, batch transactions, and so on. That launch is happening very early next year, and if you want to participate in that, here's a QR code where you can do so. Thank you.